Hello beer tubers and welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of hoppets. Today looking at a Rauchbier. Rauchbier is one of my all-time favorite styles that I've reviewed pretty much all of the Schlenkerlas, and once in a while I revisit them and do things, which has been really fun. And I think they are probably some of the best Rauchbiers in the world, but there's a lot of others. There are some that are close to the level, but it's not something you see that often. There's not a lot of brewers who, make the beers because it's such a particular style. Like, it's not for everyone. But apparently, this style has had a bit of a renaissance in America. There's a few breweries doing it now, kind of on the reg or as special releases. And I've actually got some live oak coming very soon, where 3 of the beers are Rauchbiers, which is really cool. That would be so much fun to try. One is like a Schwarzbier, but done as a Rauchbier. That sounds really cool. So, yeah, it's been a thing in the States. And there's a few Danish breweries that's also tried it. And the brewery I work at right now, Bad Seed Brewing, we also did one not too long ago. Like an amber one, but with an extra kick of hops. Kind of like amber lager, Vienna lager done Rauchbier, but with classic hops and a good amount of woody, spicy classic hops. It'll probably be pretty good. I don't know. It's just we're just about to lager it, so we'll see what happens. But it's been slowly becoming a thing. I think it's a niche thing though in America. But I saw this on Tavour and I was like, I need to get my hands on this because it's a Rauchbier. Like, you never see people do this nowadays. Although it's happened a few times now, as I mentioned. But yeah, this one is from Montclair Brewery, brewed in collaboration with Mack. Montclair Brewery is in New Jersey, and this is their Fume, or Fumé. I'm guessing it's Fume. So it's a 5% Rauchbier, and it was made for Barrel and Flow Fest last year in 2021. And they brewed this with peat smoked malt and roasted barley along with brown sugar, and then they use English East Cape Golden hops, which contribute to mellow yet flavorful notes and lends a pleasant spicy aroma and refined flavor, it says here on the can. But interesting that they've gone with peat smoked malt. Traditionally, it's beechwood smoked malt. But one of the things I've talked about with this style is the way to explore it that'd be really fun is looking at smoking malt with different woods, or peat in this case. So doing fruitwood smoke or whatever, like cherrywood smoked Rauchbier or hickory smoked Rauchbier. Barbecuing is such a huge thing, and doing barbecue with different woods impairs so much different flavor. Why not try and do it with barley malt? Smoke barley malt over different types of wood to create different types of Rauchbier. Look at the smoke as an ingredient in the beer. And I know I think Viking malt in Europe does a few different variations of smoked malt. But it is super rare you see people play around with that. But I hope that's something we're going to see more of. But let's dive into this one. So roasted barley as well. I wonder if it's just to dye it, just to get it a bit dark, or we're going to have a bit of a roasted barley flavor. Also had to break out my Schlenkerla glass, probably the best producer of Rauchbier in the world. But it looks pretty much like, it looks like a Schlenkerla Märzen in the glass. Is that really dark mahogany brown color, and there is a beige head on top. Let's check out the aroma. Yeah, it's definitely not the same like hefty meaty smoke. I wonder if they used a bit of beechwood smoked malt, because I'm definitely also getting a touch of just classic meatiness, but it has that like tarry, ashy smoke you get from peat. Also, big problem, this is such a bad glass to sit and sniff from. I think it'd be actually better to swirl a bit here and smell from the can. Yeah, I think they might do a bit of both. I mean, I'm definitely smelling peat malt, but usually I do not pick up meaty barbecue smoke from peat malt. I only get that from beechwood and like oak and things like that. But it has a bit of that, and I do sense there's a touch of toasty, harsher, roastier kind of. It's probably a touch, just a slight amount, but there is like a sharper malt profile, which I think could be the roasted barley. Otherwise, it's like really bready, caramel, toffee notes. Yeah, and then the smoke underneath as well. It's not as forward on the smoke, at least on the aroma, as a lot of the Schlenkerla beers, and that's always going to be the reference because they're some of the best. But it's not that like full on, at least on the aroma, but with smoke, it's interesting. It can work in many different ways. But I think usually most brewers, when they try to do this style, they usually use around minimum of 30% smoked malt in the grist to get the smoke really to be apparent. But let's check it out. Cheers. Definitely peated. Peaty, smoky flavor galore. I much prefer classic meaty smoke. It's much more sharp. It's much more tarry. It's much more ashy. It's much more burnt in flavor profile. It works really well in Scotch, in Islay Scotch. But I think in a Rauchbier personally, I much prefer the classic meaty smoke. I think there's a touch of it, but it's an ever so light touch, and it has like a slightly sharp tartness. I don't really think it's sour or anything, but it's like it just seems like it has a slightly lower pH value because it feels like there's a bit of sharpness to it. But that could also be the peated malt. Like peated malt is fairly sharp. Or even the roasted barley, because that also contributes to acidity. Yeah, there is a touch of that. It like the peat and the roasted barley, like they meet up in like on a sharp end, where it's like a sharp, slight burnt edge that is, and the peat kind of amplifies it as well. It's almost like that kind of burnt wood vibe, and it tastes nice. It definitely tastes nice. It sounds like I'm off. It's off or whatever, or not off. It's not like my 100% my cup of tea, but I still think it's a good Rauchbier. But it's got some shortcomings in terms of the flavor profile I usually prefer. I think the peat dominates more on the flavor than the aroma indicate, and because it has like this sharp, tart, slightly acidic flavor, it hides a little bit of the malt complexity, and also it doesn't have the biggest body. It's not light by any means, but yeah, like peat smoked malt can work really well in many different types of beers in fairly small amounts, I think. I think otherwise it's best in whiskey, especially, peated Islay beers. Well, it's also really good like with barrel aging and whatnot when you use it with big imperial stouts. And it can be good in stouts and stuff as well, but in smaller amounts. But here where it's got a lot, I don't know. Maybe it's just the base beer with the peat malt and everything. It's not 100% to my, preference. What is the decent Rauchbier? It is. I'd probably go like 375 on Untapped or something like that. Like it does not get close to the likes of Schlenkerla. Even the ones we had from Poland, even though they were weird pastry-fried versions with lactose and one with smoked cheese and cranberries, they were better than this actually. Just in my personal preference. In terms of style, it's got pretty much what you want, but it's lacking in both mouthfeel. It's lacking on the meaty kind of smoke that you usually associate with it, but because there's so much peat. But you can't look exactly to style always with craft brewers, because craft brewers try to go their own way and experiment, like they've done here with using peat malt and roasted barley. But I think it's just too much of like sharp, ashy, burnt. Like it's almost like if you look at this burnt barley that's on the label, it's almost like you can see this hefty dark gray smoke. It's like that combined with like cinders of some kind of burnt stuff. It's almost like that kind of profile you get. It's not like a lot, but it's a little bit. Paired with a minuscule amount of darker kind of bready malt. And I don't really know, the brown sugar, like there's next to no sweetness in it. Like when I popped it, it gushed a bit. So maybe some of that brown sugar is re-fermented in the can. But as it is right now, an 86, I think. Something like that. Maybe an 87. I would have loved this more without the roasted barley probably, and without the peated smoke and just pure beechwood or something else. But I'm really going to applaud them for playing around with smoke character. I know peat is often the obvious one to jump to because the easiest available smoked malt is peat or beech or oak smoke, usually. At least in Europe. So, that's what most people would probably play around with. But it's still good. And I love that these guys try to do Rauchbier and spread the word of the amazing Franconian style of beer that is so unique and has its homestead in Bamberg, Germany. That if you've ever been on beer trips throughout Europe and you haven't been to Bamberg, that's a must-visit spot. So yeah, and not just for Rauchbier. They got amazing lagers in Franconia and Bamberg and that whole area as well, and killer beers and all kinds of stuff. It's great if you're a classic beer lover. So yeah, if you guys had a chance to try Fume by Montclair and Mack Brewery in New Jersey, let me know what you thought of it. Fun Rauchbier. If you love Rauchbier, you're going to have a fun time drinking this. So as always, guys, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page and Twitter and Instagram. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I'm almost like cheers and some peated Rauchbier. And see you guys in another beer review.